At almost 48 years old, I was starting to feel tired and flabby, soft, and with a body that I wasn't really proud of. I thought it was just a normal part of aging. So when I was in my late 40s, I did what a lot of women did. I took studio classes. I dabbled in the gym, lifted weights here and there. I took yoga class. I was eating clean, but all of that didn't make a difference. I was still soft. I was still flabby, and I was slowly losing my confidence. My legs were looking terrible, particularly um, I felt like I couldn't wear shorts or skirts anymore. But here's the truth. All those things I was doing, I was dabbling and I wasn't really committing. I finally got to the point where I was sick and tired of being flabby and soft that I broke down and took a boot camp class that was being taught in my neighborhood because I had to do something different. And at first, it worked. I got fit, I got leaner, I lost body fat, but I shrunk. And it wasn't really the look that I was going for. At the time, I was following some fitness models and female professional bodybuilders on Instagram, and I was admiring their physiques. And I remember thinking, that's the physique that I want. So I started to study them. And I noticed one thing: they trained with intention and they fueled their bodies, especially with protein. So I changed my nutrition and my body responded. I also realized that I needed to change the way I trained. So I made the decision to leave the boot camp and start to pursue strength training full time. And I started to commit to building muscle. So after that, I decided to compete in bodybuilding as a goal to pursue. Now, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, and y'all, I did terrible. I came in last place. My tanning was off. My posing was awkward. It made me fall in love with the sport. Unfortunately, my coach made a list of all the things that he thought I could improve. Well, we can do this. You need to bring your lats out. You need to work on your posing, etc. And so then once I had a plan, then I decided to move forward. And we got straight to work. I didn't overthink it. I went ahead and executed the plan. And then 4 months later, I competed again in Houston, where I came in second place in my class. But I didn't realize at the time that by placing second, it qualified me for nationals. And my coach proceeded to tell me that. Did you know that you qualified for nationals? I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And then he said something to me that I didn't take him seriously at the time. He said, did you know that if you placed first in nationals, you can win your pro card? You can basically become a professional. And at the time, I didn't take him seriously. I was like, there's no way that they would provide a pro card to an old lady like me. And here I was, almost 50 years old. The biggest shift for me didn't happen on stage. So later that year, we went to the Olympia. So for those of you who don't know what the Olympia is, it is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding for men and women. So men and women compete at the most elite level from around the world. So that year I was in Las Vegas, and I remember sitting there watching the women's physique competition. It was a prejudging. There was one particular moment where the MC introduced the athlete, and he said, "This is Jennifer Hernandez, the oldest competitor in the Olympia stage. She is 50 years old." And when he said that, I still get emotional talking about it. It was like God was telling me, Maria, there's no reason why you shouldn't pursue this. And at that moment, I was like, okay, all right, let's just see what happens. I got to work. I competed in my first nationals the following year, and I placed second in my class. And then it was about 2 years later that I did earn my pro card and I became a professional bodybuilder. I was 51 years old. That moment broke my belief that I was too old to do this. So I continued competing for a number of years. But here's something most people won't tell you: you can reach a goal and realize that it's no longer aligned with what you believe. I was wondering, why am I still doing this? I'm tired of the dieting. I had lost the passion for the sport. And so in 2022, I did my last show and I walked away from the sport. And it wasn't because I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't as if I had an injury or sickness that prevented me from continuing bodybuilding. I chose to evolve. So I decided to go into powerlifting because I had seen a number of professional bodybuilders do that transition from bodybuilding to powerlifting, and they seemed to really do well in the sports. And this time I wasn't training to be smaller or skinny. I was training to be stronger, thicker, more dense in my physique. And that meant I had to fuel my body, push harder, and challenge my body in a different way. At first I was afraid I would get fat because I was feeding myself more calories and I was still bringing over from bodybuilding this idea that I had to stay small and really lean. And what happened? My body transformed. It became thicker, fuller, stronger, while still being defined. So I started to compete in some powerlifting competitions. And I looked up what the records were for the women in my age group. And I found out that I was really close. So I decided to set a new target and wanted to see how far I can take this. So I started training and working really hard. And before I got to my 60th birthday, I broke the bench press record and I broke the deadlift record. At 60 years old, I feel like I'm evolving, I'm getting stronger. I have no intentions of slowing down. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. The biggest transformation wasn't in my body, it was who I became in the process. During all this time, I didn't accept decline. It wasn't part of my vocabulary. I trained with purpose. I followed what works. I evolved when needed, and I never quit. And along the way, I never felt that I could do this alone. I hired the experts who are knowledgeable. I hired a bodybuilding coach, a nutrition coach, a powerlifting coach. I hired a posing coach, and I made the investment to help me to get to where I am today. At 60 years old, I'm not trying to get my old body back. I'm just trying to build a better and stronger one than I've ever had.